In ancient Greece, a child was born to the mighty god Zeus and a mortal woman named Alcmene. That child was Hercules, a boy destined to live between the world of gods and men. But Hercules was not born into peace. Alcmene was not Zeus's wife, and Queen Hera was furious over the existence of this forbidden child. Her anger ran so deep that two serpents slithered out from a statue in her name, sent to kill Hercules while he was still a baby. Instead of crying for help, the infant simply grabbed the snakes and crushed them with his bare hands. From that moment on, it was clear this was no ordinary child. From that day on, the world would come to know his name. This is Hercules. As he grew into a man, Hercules was given 12 deadly labors. He was told that if he completed all of them, Hera would finally allow him to live in peace. These tasks were nearly impossible. He faced the Nemean lion with its impenetrable skin, hunted a monstrous boar, and battled the many-headed Hydra. Wherever his legend spread, fear and awe followed. His nephew, Iolaus, a talented storyteller, would go ahead of him, spinning grand tales about his uncle's strength and divine blood. One day those stories reached a group of 40 pirates who were hunting Hercules. Instead of running, Hercules showed up to face them, and he did not come alone. By his side were 4 powerful allies, Autolycus, Atalanta, Amphiaraus, and Tydeus. Together they made short work of the pirates. For every head taken, they were paid 2 gold coins. Afterward, Autolycus joked that Iolaus should exaggerate the stories even more.
My stories soften their resolve.
Her resolve must be broken, Iolaus. When you spread the legend of Hercules, make it bigger.
After all, the bigger the legend, the better the pay. Their victory turned into a celebration. Crowds gathered and many were captivated by Hercules' presence. But the festivities were interrupted by the arrival of Erginia, the daughter of King Cotys. Guarded and serious, she had not come to celebrate. She had come to ask for help. Her father was locked in a civil war against his own general, Rhesus.
My father is most unfortunate. He battles a warlord, Rhesus.
In return for Hercules' aid, the king promised gold equal to his body weight. It was an offer too significant to ignore. Soon Hercules and his companions traveled east to Thrace, to the kingdom of King Cotys. They were welcomed by General Siticles and by Erginia's young son, Ares. By now, Hercules' name was known everywhere. Many believed he was an immortal demigod. But as he stepped into this new conflict, memories from 3 years earlier resurfaced. Back then, after defeating the Hydra, he had returned to Athens, to the court of King Eurystheus. He was reunited with his wife Megara and their 3 children. He proudly presented the Hydra's head as proof of his triumph, only to discover something unsettling. The creature he had slain was not a true monster, but a man wearing a serpent mask. That memory triggered something darker. The darkest day of his life, the day his family died.
Locotus awaits.
He forced himself back to the present and prepared to meet King Cotys. Hercules introduced Iolaus and the rest of his team. Cotys immediately recognized Amphiaraus, known for his prophetic visions. But when he saw Atalanta, he doubted her ability to fight simply because she was a woman. Atalanta responded not with words but with flawless precision, demonstrating her archery skills and leaving the king with no choice but to take back his doubt. King Cotys then explained the war. He claimed that his former general, Rhesus, had brought suffering upon the people. Rumors described Rhesus as a sorcerer who commanded half-man, half-horse warriors known as centaurs. It was said that only a god could defeat him. That was why Cotys wanted Hercules. Rumors spread that Rhesus could only be killed by a god. That was exactly why Cotys turned to Hercules. Whether the legend was true or not did not really matter to Cotys or to Erginia. What mattered was the name. Hercules was already seen as a hero, almost divine, and having him on their side would lift the morale of the army. The problem was they did not have much of an army to begin with. Farmers were being recruited to fill the ranks. Hercules and his team were tasked with training them from scratch. These men barely knew how to hold a shield, let alone build a solid shield wall. Before marching directly against Rhesus, Cotys decided they would first defend the city of Bessie with 4,000 troops. If Bessie fell, the next target would be the kingdom of Thrace. Atalanta warned that their forces were still too small and too inexperienced. But Cotys refused to back down. He believed that with Hercules on the battlefield, victory was guaranteed. That night, young Ares wandered through the halls and heard strange animal-like sounds coming from a dark corner. It turned out to be Titus. Born during war and shaped by trauma, Titus behaved almost like a wild beast. He never spoke, not even once. Yet despite that, he was Hercules' most loyal warrior. Ares was later taken to see his mother in the infirmary. Ergenia was not just a sheltered princess sipping wine in a palace. She had been studying healing arts, stepping in because many of the royal healers had already died in the conflict. Hercules admired Ares' determination to become a hero one day. As a symbol of encouragement, he gave the boy a necklace made from the fang of the Nemean lion. The next morning, the troops prepared for battle. Iolaus was spotted standing among the soldiers, eager to join the fight. But since he lacked combat skills, he was pulled aside and told to stay behind.
You're a storyteller, not a warrior.
We share the same blood.
And I will not see it shed. Chariot.
With a few words of motivation from Hercules, the army marched toward Bessie.
When you sleep, the wall is your blanket.
When you fight, the wall is your armor.
The shield wall will never break formation as long as there is breath in your body.
After a long journey, they arrived only to find devastation. The village had been burned to the ground. The heads of its people had been taken. As they moved through the wreckage, bodies lay scattered everywhere, including Bessie's elite soldiers. Then suddenly, the corpses began to rise and attack. It became clear that Hercules and his men had walked straight into a trap. Hercules immediately ordered the troops to form a tight square formation and protect King Cotys. Many believed this must be Rhesus's sorcery, that their minds were being twisted, turning men against one another. Now the kingdom's forces were under siege. Before the full battle erupted, one of the enemy leaders stepped forward to challenge Hercules to a duel.
I think he wants a challenge.
It ended almost instantly. With a single punch, Hercules brought him down. Then the real fighting began. Hercules and his companions led the charge at the front. Atalanta's arrows flew with deadly precision, never missing their mark as she cut down enemy after enemy. The clash turned brutal. Each of the 5 warriors had their own weapon of choice. Atalanta with her bow, Autolycus with his knives, Amphiaraus wielding a double-bladed spear, Tydeus swinging 2 massive axes, and Hercules, draped in the lion's head cloak, carrying his iron mace. Eventually, the shield wall was broken and King Cotys was in danger. Without hesitation, Hercules and the others rushed in with a chariot fitted with sharp blades. The chariot tore through the enemy ranks, shifting the momentum of the battle. Soon, the remaining enemy forces scattered and fled. From a distance, Rhesus watched the battle unfold. For the moment, the kingdom of Trees claimed victory, but it came at a heavy cost. Half of their soldiers were dead. Hercules made it clear that he had warned them. The men were brave, but they were not ready. He asked for time to properly train them, and this time, Cotys agreed. Soon after, the healers arrived. Ergenia personally treated the stab wound in Hercules' body. So much for immortality and divine magic. Hercules could bleed like any other man. He resisted treatment at first, but Ergenia insisted. She had seen that stubbornness before in her late husband. In the end, she made sure he took the medicine so he could recover faster. While tending to him, she asked if he had children. Hercules fell silent. The question lingered, but he offered no answer. That night, as he slept, the past returned. He relived the day his wife and 3 children died.
How could you do such a terrible thing? By law, I should execute you, but I believe a more fitting punishment would be to let you live.
King Eurystheus had accused him of murdering his own family. Instead of executing him, Eurystheus chose something crueler. He allowed Hercules to live with the guilt, branded a monster, and exiled from Athens. Hercules suddenly awoke and stepped outside, still haunted. For a moment, he imagined walking among corpses, even seeing his own family about to be devoured by Cerberus, the 3-headed hound. But once again, it was only a nightmare. Amphiaraus understood immediately. He knew Hercules had been trapped in another dark dream. He believed that if Hercules ever wanted peace, he would have to confront the monster that kept tormenting him from within. Later, Ergenia approached Tydeus, Atalanta, Autolycus, and Iolaus while they were resting. She had heard the rumors that Hercules had killed his own family and wanted to know the truth. None of them could confirm what had really happened. When his family died, Hercules remembered nothing, but every one of them believed he was innocent. Then another truth surfaced. The 12 labors had not been assigned by Hera, as many believed, but by King Eurystheus. In the beginning, Autolycus had been Hercules' only companion. Over time, the team grew after Hercules saved Atalanta and Tydeus from their own troubled past. As stories of Hercules' strength spread, they leaned into the legend. They allowed the world to believe he was the son of Zeus. With Aeolus crafting the narrative and spreading it far and wide, the myth grew larger than life. According to Autolycus, the goal was simple. A bigger legend meant more mercenary jobs and more gold. Amphiaraus, who had been quietly resting in his tent, reminded them that despite all his strength, Hercules was still a man tormented by his family's death. Whether he had truly killed them or not, the guilt was eating him alive. Training resumed in earnest. The soldiers learned how to handle spears and swords, how to shoot arrows, how to fight as a unit, and how to form stronger, more disciplined formations. Then a scout named Phineus reported that Rhesus and his army had set up camp on Mount Thrace, about 247 miles away. Hercules asked Amphiaraus if he had seen the outcome of the coming battle. Amphiaraus admitted he had not. The only vision he had was of his own death, which he claimed would come in a week, in a place that looked like hell. By now, the army looked completely different. The soldiers moved with discipline, their formations tight and difficult to break. With their training complete, they continued the march toward Mount Thrace. But when they arrived, something felt off. There was no sign of Rhesus' camp. That was because Rhesus was already prepared for battle, and the terrifying centaur army everyone feared turned out to be nothing more than a myth. They were simply ordinary men riding horses.
Seems we were expected.
Rhesus approached Cadiz confidently, ready to fight. Then the truth about Phineus came out. The scout had betrayed them and sided with Rhesus all along. Rhesus's army outnumbered Cody's forces 3-1, yet Cody showed no fear. As always, Hercules stepped forward to strengthen the soldiers' resolve before the clash began.
In this moment, on this day, become the man you were born to be! You have it within yourself! For victory!
At the right moment, Rhesus signaled his archers, but Atalanta and her team responded just as swiftly, pushing back wave after wave of enemy troops with arrows that never missed their mark. As the enemy closed in, Hercules and his companions charged to meet them head-on. Rhesus ordered flaming arrows to rain down on the battlefield. The soldiers quickly locked into a defensive formation. In that chaotic moment, Amphiaraus believed this was the day he would die. Yet arrow after arrow flew toward him, and somehow none struck. He remained standing. Rhesus's forces were gradually pushed back. Rhesus himself aimed directly for Hercules, but it ended quickly. Hercules knocked him from his horse and defeated him without hesitation. They returned to the kingdom with Rhesus, Phineus, and several others as prisoners. In front of the crowd, Siddicles humiliated Rhesus, kicking him repeatedly.
Enough.
Hercules stepped in and stopped the disgraceful display. That was when Rhesus revealed a shocking truth. It was Cadiz who had burned the village of Bessie. Hercules had been fighting on the wrong side all along. Later, during a feast, Siddicles declared that Tris was now united under one king. But Rhesus insisted that Tris did not belong to a king at all. It belonged to its people. In that moment, Hercules began to believe Rhesus was telling the truth. He sought out Erginia after noticing the sorrow in her eyes while Rhesus was being held captive. She finally admitted everything. Cadiz was the true villain, not Rhesus. She had lied to protect her son, Ares. Cadiz had threatened to kill the boy if she did not manipulate Hercules into helping him. Years earlier, Erginia's husband had been the rightful king, but Cadiz poisoned him to steal the throne. Since then, Rhesus had been fighting back, and the civil war began. Erginia begged Hercules to take Ares away somewhere safe. One day, Ares was meant to become king and heal the kingdom. Soon after, Siddicles summoned Hercules to meet King Cadiz. Holding back his anger, Hercules confronted him, declaring that Cadiz was the real mastermind.
You wanted conquerors, not heroes. You betrayed me, Cadiz.
Betrayed?
But Cadiz was already ahead. Rhesus had been defeated. Cadiz argued that Hercules was more than a mercenary. By training the army, he had already strengthened the kingdom. Those soldiers would go on to train thousands more. Cadiz wanted Hercules to stay and lead them, to serve the crown and expand its power. Hercules refused. He would not serve a tyrant. Codes then twisted the knife further by accusing Hercules of being a child killer. Since Hercules and his companions refused to pledge loyalty, they were paid as promised, then immediately exiled from the kingdom. Hercules told his companions to leave. He wanted to handle everything on his own, believing that if he stayed alone, no one else he cared about would get hurt. Autolycus warned him not to be foolish. In his eyes, the smarter choice was to walk away and live free. But Hercules refused to abandon the people of Tris. Atalanta, Amphiarus, Tydeus, and Iolaus stood with him. Even when Iolaus was urged to leave with Autolycus, he chose to stay. He was tired of only telling stories about heroes. This time, he wanted to fight beside one and create his own story. Autolycus did not share that sense of loyalty. He walked away without looking back, and Hercules let him go. That very night, Hercules planned to strike against King Codes. But before they could act, they were surrounded by Codes' soldiers. Cydicles claimed he had uncovered a plot between Hercules and Erginia to smuggle Ares out of the kingdom. Ares was immediately taken from his mother. While being held captive, Hercules secretly clutched the necklace made from the Nemean lion's fang. Moments later, he was struck hard and knocked unconscious. Ares was dragged away, separated from Erginia. When Hercules came to, he was imprisoned. Then a familiar figure appeared. King Eurystheus stepped forward, accompanied by 3 massive hounds. The truth finally came to light. Athens and Tris had formed an alliance to conquer all of Greece, and in that moment Hercules remembered what really happened 3 years ago. Eurystheus had drugged him. While he was unconscious, those 3 hounds had slaughtered his family. Eurystheus had done it out of fear. Hercules was becoming too beloved, praised as a hero, and almost worshipped as a god by the people of Athens. Eurystheus felt threatened. If the people admired Hercules more than their king, his throne would not be secure. So he destroyed Hercules' reputation, framing him for the murder of his own family. Hercules had never wanted the crown, but that did not matter. Now the plan was to eliminate everyone who stood in the way, starting with Erginia. Codes intended to shape young Ares into a ruler molded to his own will. As Erginia was about to be executed, Amphiarus kept urging Hercules to remember who he truly was. Not a monster, not a mercenary, but a legendary hero. Those words sparked something deep inside him. Strength surged through his body, and he snapped the heavy iron chains that bound him. He lunged forward and confronted the massive hounds. All 3 attacked at once, but Hercules and his companions fought back fiercely. One by one, the beasts fell. The Wagi, freed from their cells, they stormed out and launched an assault on Codes' forces. In the chaos, a soldier hurled a spear at Amphiarus. For a moment, he believed his vision of death had finally arrived. Yet once again, he survived.
My time.
Hercules chased Eurystheus alone and ended his life without hesitation. At the same time, Cydicles tried to strike Hercules down with his whip, but Iolaus stepped in and saved his uncle. As they pushed forward to find Codes and Ares, thousands of Tris soldiers gathered outside, ready for battle. Codes, cornered and desperate, surrendered. But he made one final threat. If Hercules did not bow, Ares would die. Just when things seemed hopeless, Autolycus returned. Without hesitation, he charged straight into Codes' soldiers. He snapped Hercules out of his stunned silence and pushed him to act. That was all it took. Hercules and the others rose again and threw themselves back into the fight. Amid the chaos, Ares tried to escape under Tydeus' protection, but an arrow struck the boy. Something inside Tydeus broke. He charged forward in a blind fury, cutting down enemies without mercy. He fought like a storm, unstoppable, until his strength finally gave out and he fell. Hercules carried Tydeus into the palace as flames spread across the battlefield, holding back the enemy forces. For the first time in his life, Tydeus spoke. With his final breath, he called out Hercules' name.
Hercules.
The battle raged on. As the enemy regrouped for another assault, Hercules turned his attention to the towering statue of Hera that stood as a symbol of fear and power. With a surge of strength, he brought it crashing down. The massive structure shattered and collapsed onto the battlefield, crushing soldiers beneath it, including Codes, who was thrown aside by the impact. Through the smoke and destruction, Hercules stepped forward. One by one, the soldiers lowered their weapons and bowed. With Cody's dead, the throne rightfully passed to Ares. And as calm slowly returned, Amphiara's voice echoed over it all, declaring that this was the story of Hercules. So the moral of the story is, if you are going to fake being a demigod, at least make sure your boss is not poisoning kings, framing you for murder, and sending 3 giant dogs after your family.